Hello, welcome to a very, very special Valentine's Day episode of House of R. I'm Joanna Robinson, and joining me now for perhaps our last podcast together ever, it's Mallory Rubin.
Do we have whiteboards with us for some educational diagramming? We do.
We do. Okay, hello.
We do.
Listen, this is House of R, a podcast that you may have listened to, but if you haven't or you've never watched us before, this show often contains adult content. Mm-hmm. We really mean it today.
Yes.
I'm just going to start there. We're doing a podcast today. This is our second annual Valentine's Day Quickie podcast. Yeah. We're doing it on the rise of Romantasy as a genre. And specifically, we were talking about the new Rebecca Yarros book, Onyx Storm. We have a whole section to talk about Onyx Storm. These are spicy books.
Oh, yeah.
This is a spicy topic.
Yes.
So we've heard from people in the past, from parents who are like, oh, yeah, my kids listen. And no judgment. I love that your kids listen to this podcast.
Yeah.
I'm just saying today.
What an honor.
Of all days, let it be known. Great. Program reminders of podcasts we may never get a chance to do together because this might be our last podcast ever.
Oh, man.
We're covering Yellow Jackets.
That's right.
That's on House of R.
We are. Right here. First one's already up.
Buzz, bitches. Yeah. So we'll be back next week with our coverage of episode 3. Mm-hmm. And then we will also be covering Captain America Brave New World next week.
Yep.
So that is all coming from us.
It is.
And that's exciting.
Yeah.
On the Ringerverse, next Tuesday, Ringer Quest.
It's time.
We did a D&D game with Steve as our DM.
It was so fun.
And we had the best time.
We all left and started immediately texting Steve asking when we could play again.
When can we play again?
And frankly, Steve, we're still waiting.
So it's Mallory, it's Joanna, it's Charles, it's Jomi, it is Van, and it is Steve on the DM in the DM chair. That will be going up on YouTube.
Yeah.
On Spotify.
Yes.
And also any podcatcher of your choice.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Wonderful.
Also, the Midnight Boys pew, 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 did a Blackest movie draft episode, which will be up next week as well.
Tremendous.
Also, they have Captain America Brave New World takes that have been recorded.
That's right.
And we shall hear them at some point. That's exciting too. That's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And again, once again, we may not survive this episode to record those next week. But if we do, Mallory Rubin, love of my life, how can folks keep track of all of that content?
Thanks for asking. Here's what I would recommend. Follow the pod.
Great.
Follow House of R. Follow the Ringerverse. Follow the Prestige TV podcast, where we are covering White Lotus. And Joe is covering Severance on Spotify. Or wherever you get your podcasts.
Sure.
But here's the thing, on Spotify, you can watch us on video, full video episodes of House of R, Midnight Boys, Pew Pew, Prestige TV, and you can watch those video episodes on the no longer new, fucking old, the withered crone that is the Ringerverse YouTube channel. While you're at it, follow us on the social media platform of your choosing, whatever that might be these days, and send us your emails. You've been sending them. We have a lot of them today.
Yes.
We couldn't have done it without you.
Not even for a second.
Yeah. This is not just a couple today. This is an orgy.
This is just the tip of what we got
from
from our listeners.
Yeah. Normally, Romantasy involves a lot of full thrust.
Yeah.
But this is just the tip.
Yeah.
We're just getting started.
Yep.
Okay, we didn't even make it through the intro. Didn't even make it through the intro.
Also, if you're just listening to this podcast and you're not watching it, because we are in studio,
dude.
We should let you know that John Richter, our guy John Richter, has decked out the set, bedecked it in Valentine's Day regalia. There's candles. There's a new logo for us. It's great stuff. So
beautiful. We have mood lighting. We have red mood lighting.
And we will be diagramming things. So this might be one you want to watch.
I would recommend it.
But again, after the kids are in bed. Okay. Before we completely devolve into depraved territory, one classy follow-up to our mailbag episode earlier this week. I was talking about this Penguin book series when we were talking about book collection.
Yes.
With letters on the covers. And our listener Emma wrote in to remind me that that's called the Penguin Drop Cap series. And the letters are actually correspond to titles, not authors. And they're beautiful. They're absolutely gorgeous. So if you are looking to book collect the Penguin Drop Cap
Beautiful.
series.
Wonderful.
Love it.
I love collecting books. I'm going to look at those. And then we get to go from Drop Cap to Drop Trowel. Let's do it.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Spoiler warning.
Yeah.
We'll warn you as they come.
Yeah.
But specifically be on the lookout for spoiler warnings for A Court of Thorn and Roses, the Empyrean series, and very specifically Onyx Storm, the latest, the third installment in the Empyrean series.
Which you finished last night.
Yes.
Respectfully, responsibly. And I finished
mere minutes ago.
Well, let's be real, 12 minutes ago. I finished 9 minutes before this podcast was supposed to start.
Please.
And that was stressful, but also thrilling.
When you made your deadline, you came in here. Yeah, you were brimming with joy that you had made it. I read/listened to all 3 books in the Empyrean series over the last week and a half.
Maybe it was, it was barely more than a week.
Yeah, I think like a week and a half.
Yeah. This is great because I don't know how to pronounce any of the words in this series. In my mad dash to finish on time, I did listen to a few chapters on the audiobook and realized that I was way off on quite a few of the pronunciations. So I will not be held accountable for how I pronounce any dragon name today, nor any location, and also perhaps any character. I do think I can get Violet and Xaden right. And so that's probably enough. Thrust.
Can you pronounce that?
Yeah,
that's going to come in handy. Yeah. Great. Okay.
Dane.
Atos.
Dane Atos is a strong name.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Here's the big picture. This is where we're going to start.
Big picture.
We're going to start here.
Is girthy picture.
Is this the screen cap that they're going to pick for the video? Okay.
Oh boy, why'd they let us do this?
I don't know. Romantasy.
Yeah.
What is it? Why is it a big deal?
Yeah.
Okay, so we mentioned a series called A Court of Thorn and Roses.
Yes.
Sarah J. Maas.
Yes.
Who has written not only the series A Court of Thorn and Roses, but also Throne of Glass and Crescent City. Just to give you, if you're listening to this or watching this and you are like, I've heard a bit about Romantasy, but I'm not sure. Is it all that popular? Why is it worth talking about, et cetera? Well, it's worth talking about to see the look on Mallory's face every time she says something that might shock and delight you, and preferably titillate you. But Sarah J. Maas has sold over 38 million copies worldwide of her books.
It's a lot.
And the TikTok tag, #ACOTAR, has 8.9 billion views.
Good God.
That's a lot.
Oh my God.
So suffice to say, it's popular. Perhaps even more popular is the very recent phenomenon of Rebecca Yarros's Empyrean series, which the newest book, Onyx Storm, sold 2.7 million copies in its first week, which is a 20-year record for literature marketed towards adults.
Sheesh.
How are you feeling about that? About the widespread money popularity of Romantasy?
Yeah. I feel wonderful about it. This is exciting. I'm new to Romantasy.
Yeah.
So part of what's fun about doing this pod and talking about this with you is this is like a new journey of discovery in so many ways for me and for a lot of people. So I read Fourth Wing that came out in May of 2023. Iron Flame came out in November of 2023. 2 books to kick off the series in the same year. Rebecca Yarros is prolific, but they had both been like part of this. The fact that they were both going to come out in the same year was part of this initial publishing strategy, right? So that obviously like helped to stoke a lot of the fervor around it. That you weren't going to have to wait long. You end each of these books. You're very excited to start to dive into the next. So my book club, my book club with my college pals, one of our friends said, "Guys, we got it. This is like everywhere. Yeah, you can't escape it." That friend is obsessed with the Court of Thorns and Roses books, and I had literally seen her read them for the first time. It was on one of our friend trips a few summers ago, and I watched her get through like a full book, and those are long books, in like half a day. Like she could not put them down. Correct. So I knew that this genre had a grip on somebody who not only I love and care about, but who I spend a lot of time reading books with and discussing books with. She said, we got to read Fourth Wing. We read it pretty close. I can't remember exactly when Iron Flame was coming out, and then we read Iron Flame over the winter. So we read both of those pretty close together.
Yeah.
And 2 of the 5 members of the book club had already read in full A Court of Thorns and Roses by then. And so the other 3 of us decided we should probably break off. Squad battle, much like in the other series. Empyrean. And then they both started reading, and I was like, I'm right. I don't have time. Why did I suggest this? And so I came to that very late, quite recently. But that's a very long way of saying, like, whether it's because somebody in your life is recommending it, or because your book club is reading it, or because you're reading the Times piece about the trend, or because you're seeing book talk the posts everywhere, or having a book talk experience curated for you personally by a dear friend who is solely responsible for your TikTok algorithm, who could it be? Then it just was like the kind of thing that was inescapable genuinely.
Yeah.
And that's a really fun thing. It's fun when people are excited about books. It's fun when people are excited about a new story, a new fictional world.
Story.
And they're sharing it in, like at the same time, or even the same sort of moment in time, approximate moment. And so, like, I think this is great. Obviously, it's not for everyone, and that's also totally fine. But the fact that there are so many things churning out and people can, like, figure out what it's all about together and talk about it in real time with other people who are reading it too, delightful. What about you?
Yeah, I read A Court of Thorn and Roses. I haven't read through the whole series, but I read several of the books.
I'm on the third book.
During the pandemic.
Yeah.
Because people had just been talking about it on Book Talk. There's this thing with I'm not chiefly on Book Talk, but there is this degree of fervor around certain titles that will rise to the level that I will take notice and I will say, wow, I want to know what that is.
Yeah.
Right? If ACOTAR is as popular, Court of Thorn and Roses, or if Fourth Wing is as popular, surely they're probably going to make a TV show or a movie out of it. And I want to have opinions about that before that comes out. And so I read A Court of Thorn and Roses during the pandemic. And then I read Fourth Wing really early. Like, I think if it came out in May, I think I read it in like June. Yeah. Something like that, like really, really fast. Yeah. And then I was like, okay. Yeah. We talked about it a little bit. You hadn't read it yet. Right. And then I had heard, I didn't love it. And we'll talk about that in a second. But you and I talked about it a little bit. I talked about it a little bit on the pod. And then I had heard that Iron Flame, a lot of people thought Iron Flame wasn't as good. Yeah. And I was like, well, if Fourth One wasn't my favorite thing, I'm just not going to read Iron Flame because like, it's fine. I think I understand what this is. Yes. And then we wanted to do this. Yeah. And you wanted to talk about Onyx Storm. Yes. So that's when I would say binged the books over the last week and a half. It was a reread for Fourth Wing, but it was my first time through Iron Flame, which was not demonstrably different, I thought, than Fourth Wing. Its flaws were overreported to me, I would say. And then Onyx Storm, I just finished last night. And the point you make about community, which is something I want to talk about inside of this, is so important because I read ACOTAR in like literal isolation. No one I knew in my life was reading it, and we were like in COVID. We were all in lockdown. I wasn't like on the message boards or inside a community reading it or inside a book club reading it. Yeah. I read Fourth Wing again, sort of in isolation of my own curiosity, kind of like. Some people in my life have read it since, but like at that time, no one was reading it except all the millions of people on Book Talk. But like I wasn't in conversation with them. And so reading the books over the last week and a half and talking to you about them a little bit, hearing what your husband Adam thinks of them, et cetera, hearing from getting all these emails from our listeners, the bad babies about it, I felt inside the community. Yeah. And so then all of a sudden, like the flaws that I find in the books, which are there, and you and I both agree on them. Matter less than just sort of like we're all enjoying something. We got a lot of emails from listeners that are just sort of like calling it popcorn or fast food, which is not to dismiss it. They're like, I loved this.
Love consuming it, yeah.
And it doesn't, it's a lot of empty calories, but there's no problem with that. And there are good things that come from that too. So I want to talk about what's in the mix here for Romantasy. You can sort of track the reading habits across the last 20, 30 years. You think about the kids who are raised in Harry Potter, who then move into the Twilight era, who then are watching Game of Thrones on TV. This is basically a lot of the stories that we were enjoying in the YA space, like Hunger Games, or Shadow and Bone, or a bunch of different ones, plus a lot of sex. Right. And so now it's in an adult space. Yes. So it is a fantastical adventure with dragons or fae or whatever the case may be, but also a lot of adult content along with it. So a little 50 Shades in there as well, if you prefer. It's very sex positive, which I love. Same. And very sex positive, like for women. Like it is, it's not like whatever your feelings about romance, there were stereotypes about romance when I grew up that like women were all sort of frail and fainting and sex sort of like happened to them.
Right.
And that's not really the case, at least with these books. You know what I mean? Like women are full of agency, not just inside of their own fantastical adventures that they're having, but also in these like sexual assignations as well. So
that's one of the things that I, while I am new to it, you know, so I finished the first 2 court books.
Yeah.
Second one was fucking dynamite.
Second one's really good.
You told me it was going to be great, and boy, was it. Oh, my Lord.
Yeah.
And I have read, obviously, the first 3 Empyrean books. I started the 3rd court book and look forward to reading that soon, and to checking out some other series and other authors from there. But so I'm 5 books in, you know, my Romantasy journey. I'm new, but there are a number of things that have been compelling, but that point that you're making and that quality that you're citing is so affirming and genuinely cool to see. Like Violet and Feyre and other characters in the story have as much sexual desire and passion as any of the dudes around them. And that's like an exciting thing to see normalized and to see like a lot of people exposed to. Also, what a time to be alive where millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of people are reading books about how important the female orgasm is.
This is the thing. And like, okay, so alongside this romantasy journey, I've been on like this fan fiction journey just for like the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about that. I have a little like fan fiction section to get to, but those are also like very smutty, very spicy. And I was never like a smutty, spicy book reader at all. But reading them, I was like, you know who should read this? Are like, this is a very heteronormative take, but I'm like, young men who feel like they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I feel like often
it's an instruction manual.
Yeah, they're like, oh, I should go watch porn to understand. No. You should read romantasy or fan fiction where the female orgasm is like centered. Again, if your agenda as a
centered in a swirling tongue.
If your agenda is the pleasure of your female partner, so let's take heteronormativity out of it.
Yes.
Who cares who you are? If you're inexperienced sexually and you are looking to please your partner, might I suggest
check out these tomes.
These books.
You will learn a great deal.
Mallory will do some drawings for you later. Yeah.
The inverse of that is I do wonder. My only fear is I hope this isn't setting up a lot of people for a life of disappointment on the sex front.
Lightning
not everyone's Reese. Not everyone's Zayden. Yeah, you're not always going to blow up your furniture.
No,
not with lightning bolts because your orgasm was so shattering. Yeah. Not every sentence in your internal monologue will end with an italicized or unraveled or shattered.
Yeah.
Would that it were.
But maybe more will.
Maybe more will.
People
and
read
wouldn't
these
that
books.
be great?
It would be great for everyone, I think. So very sex positive. And then on that community front, it was like very Eras tour. Like that lovely female friendship. Plenty of men read romantasy. Plenty of men went to go see Taylor Swift. So like I'm not saying that men aren't invited to this party, but like it is a space for women to connect with other women about these things and stories that were often told they had to be embarrassed by. I remember my grandma read romance novels growing up.
Yeah.
And she had like a little slip cover that she would put on the front of her
to hide the shame.
To hide
there's no shame.
Yeah. These are best selling bangers. And also they don't put Fabio on the cover anymore. So like it's
and we have lost something. As a result, I can totally remember walking through the grocery store and like just the little side eye trying to just sneak a peek.
You're like, what's Fabio up to now? He's a pirate. Oh my god. Book Talk has a lot to do with spreading the word on this. But I really like this point from Christine Larson, who's the author of Love in the Time of Self-Publishing, about sort of the romantasy boom. She said, quote, people are feeling unsettled right now. Women especially are often feeling powerless. And the heroine in these books have power.
Yes.
They gain power and they find love interests who are their equals. That's important to him right now to imagine a different world, end quote. The thing about, let's say specifically in the Empyrean saga, Zayden, is that he has like a competency kink. He's just sort of like, I love when you're smart. I love when you're strong. I love this and that and the other thing. I get off on how like badass you are.
Yes.
And this is just like a great thing across these novels is just sort of like, I love your accomplishments. It's not
Totally.
Violet saying Xaden's so smart and so strong and so handsome, which he is, and she does say that.
Yes,
but it's
that end. Yeah.
And this thing as well. You know what I mean?
Man. That's a great point. I love that. And like, not only and again, we're in full spoiler territory for both series here, right? Not only are Xaden and Rhys ever renewing resources on that front, right? It's just a wellspring of adoration and adulation. They are clearly the right choices for that reason. Tamlin wants to keep Feyre shut up, locked up, so worried about her safety and harm, and there's no trust, right? Dane, at the beginning of Fourth Wing, is like supposed to be the guy that Violet ends up with, right up to the good, very amusing and painful for Dane payoff in Onyx Storm when they're working their way through the world finally, and Violet has discovered her father's journals and people who knew him, and they're like,
it's gotta be Dane. It's gotta be Dane Atos.
It was Xaden. And like, Dane didn't trust Violet when she arrived at Basgiath and decided to leave the scribe life behind, become a rider, to make the decisions that were right for her and that she knew were right for her. And so how could he be right for her?
He was trying to protect her. She's so fragile. He's trying to protect her.
Yeah. And Xaden's like, you can protect.
Let me show you how to get stronger.
Yeah. Let me help you. But like, you can protect everyone. You're the strongest. You can protect me. And also, you're the most important thing. And let's fuck. Yeah, it's great.
We got this email from our listener, Emily.
Okay. I like it.
Yeah,
it's good. It's cute. I was told there was a new sound drop for the mailbags, and I said out loud, is it moaning?
Yeah.
And you told me it was not.
A little smoocheroo.
I love it.
From
Beautiful.
Steve Ahlman, who saw the set deck that John Richter had done and was like, I can play.
Here's the thing about the set deck and the sound effects from just the greatest team there is. Not only is it wonderful, not only does it show a commitment and a creativity, it is tasteful. And I wanted to say thank you for your restraint because somebody had to have it.
Makes
today.
No promises. Okay. So Emily asks, what do you make of the narrative surrounding books like Fourth Wing as, quote, dragon smut, or series like ACOTAR being called fairy porn? Is this a misogynistic slight aimed at what is predominantly female-read genre books? Or is it just always seems that mainstream publishing / literary wants to put genres like romance or romantasy down and declare them as unserious? Or do we just fully embrace the smut and own it as what we like to read? And we got several emails like this. And you and I were talking about this the other day. I was like, the first time I heard dragon smut or fairy porn, they came loud and proud from people who love these books and have no shame reading these books.
Yeah.
So I only ever heard it as a term from like inside of the reading community who are just sort of like, I love my dragon smut book or I love my fairy porn books. So I know I'm sure that there are plenty of people who want to sneer at people enjoying a lot of sex inside of their fantasy books. But I don't think like these terms necessarily need to be, something just like own it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dragon smut.
I love that. It's not, I'm sure you're right that there are people out there who it's like there's a derisive quality. But like it's a badge of honor, right? Or it can be at least.
Yeah.
This is a thing that is bringing people joy. And that's awesome. Yeah. So like let's just say out loud what it is without any shame.
Exactly.
Fantastic.
Similarly, our listener Kelly asked, and this is a thank you. This is genuinely something you sent me your husband Adam's review of Fourth Wing, and I sent you a similar review of Onyx Storm, which is like, this is not the finest prose we've ever read. Yeah. We've got some issues with some plot stuff and some confusing whatever. Can't wait to read the next one.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
So Kelly asks, how do we think we should talk about this genre in a way that acknowledges its faults and pushes for higher quality while not dismissing the real entertainment and joy we get from these horny books? So like, are we allowed to talk? I mean, we are allowed to talk about it, but like, I think I was having some before I read through the whole Empyrean series, read back through, and got really excited about it. I was a little bit actually dreading this podcast because I was like, I don't want to be the wet blanket.
Yeah.
I don't like, there's two wolves inside of me, and one of them is Mallory Rubin, and the other one is Andy Greenwald. And like, sometimes my inner Andy Greenwald could come out, and I'm just sort of like, I've read better written books,
oh, of course.
You know, like blah, 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 and that, and this, that, and the other thing. And so like, how do I talk about these books? And going back through them or going through two of them for the first time, I'm just sort of like, I just had fun. So who cares? Like, it's not the best book ever. And do I wish that like some better written books were as popular as these books? I do.
Yeah, of course.
But also we got a lot of emails from people, and I'm going to talk about them in a second, who used these books as sort of gateway to reading a bunch of other books when they had felt like stalled out and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So what do you think about this?
So I think that like a couple things. Broadly, I don't think that for what any book in any genre or any show or movie, like whatever it might be, that every single person who consumes it is going to or should feel the same way about it. Like there are going to be people, no matter how highbrow or lowbrow or how like stunning or basic anything is, who think it's Shakespeare. And there are going to be people who think it's trash and don't understand why other people like it. And then there's like an ocean of possibility in between, always, right?
Yeah.
So I think if there are people who read any of these books and think genuinely, not only did I love this and have fun, but I thought every aspect of this was amazing.
Yeah.
Like I thought the writing was lyrical and beautiful. I thought the world building was the most immersive and gripping that I'd ever encountered.
Yeah.
I think that's great. And like I don't, you know, I don't know that this will be the last book, like you said, like for the gateway idea is very tantalizing. And so like then it leads you to more and you discover more and maybe it remains your favorite and maybe it doesn't. I think there will be people who read these books and think like a lot of it actually is not for them, but there are things that are still compelling about it. And then again, like an ocean of possibility in between. My relationship to, I feel like I'll hit Empyrean first because I have a slightly different experience with the Court of Thorns and Roses books. The first book, Fourth Wing, I actually found some of the lore, like some of the mythology, interesting and cool. Like specifically the signet and the mental bond between the rider and their dragon. Yeah. Like when Violet is hearing Taryn in her head, I'm just like, cool, this is great. This is my shit, right? Yeah. However, that's part of the same thing that I enjoyed on the world building front in the first place has become one of my bigger gripes about the story as I go, which is like the real, I think, what the signet setup it's just constant Deus Ex Machina where like there's just the way the story has been structured allows constantly for the thing that needs to be introduced in that moment to be introduced in a way that typically like drives me crazy as a reader.
She also does this thing where the lore is constantly expanding, which just means I feel like she changed her mind about how something should work. And so then like all of a sudden like the wards don't do this or these people can wield when we thought they couldn't wield or this, that, and the other thing. And that's like, it's not the end of the world, but it's just something like when we get to Theory Corner, I've been like dabbling in the Reddit theories about what's coming next. I haven't done that at all.
I'm excited to dive in.
And I'm like, I think you guys are, unfortunately, I feel like the rules are constantly shifting under our feet inside of this series.
Right.
So to craft a theory, you need to know how the rules of the magic work. Yeah. And the magic is constantly changing.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like yes. So that's been something that I have like had a mixed experience with as I've gone through the series. The prose is not always for me. Mm-hmm. I will say. I have found the plot to be quite predictable, like even by the standards of a predictable plot. So I'm not like this is just, you know, a 10 out of 10, no notes, the best thing I've ever read. But there are things I really like about the world and the story. I think Violet's a really cool protagonist.
Same.
And I mean, unsurprisingly and obviously, like I'm just like enraptured by Xaden.
Yeah.
Probably the least surprising thing I've ever said on a podcast. And I'm interested in their journey. And I'm interested in the squad dynamic is something I really love about the world. As you know, I love a magic school. I love a school for magic, and I love dragon riding. So that part is fun. I was really glad in Onyx Storm to finally like broaden the map, to go to some new places.
That was the best part of Onyx Storm.
Probably my favorite part in the stories overall so far, actually.
I think a heavy critique that people had of Fourth Wing was that the world building felt very shallow. Where at Best Gaiath, we understand you're either a scribe or a writer, but like what else exists in the world? And so we went a few other places in Iron Flame, but the tour of the Isles that they do in Onyx Storm was probably my favorite part of the book. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. So like I'm interested in that, and I'd like more of that. And I think that stuff is a little bit more compelling to me than like frankly the core Dark Wielder, Venin dynamic. Mostly just because I feel like we all assume we know how that will resolve. It's just a matter of exactly how we get there.
Okay.
But maybe not. Maybe everybody becomes Venin. Everybody goes Venin. And then we're all just walking around with not only throbbing members, but throbbing veins on the temples of our faces. So yeah, and just to then kind of wind back from some of my specific feelings about it to that overall point, I would say like, I think that maybe because of the first thing we were talking about with like what is Romantasy and who is it for? Who do people think it's for?
Yeah.
I think there's, and this makes complete sense to me, maybe like more people are bracing, right, for a thing that they love to be critiqued or to be like attacked.
Yeah.
This isn't good. This is like this. Why do you think this is so great? And that sucks. So I get that there's like wait, like, why do you not think this is good? This is great. Or why do you think this is great? This isn't. But we don't have to like live in those extremes.
No.
So I have had quite a good time reading all three books, despite my notes. I had far and away the most notes about Iron Flame. Iron Flame, I tore through and then got on my book club call, and I was like, in real time, I couldn't stop like asking questions and saying and just running through all of the notes I had. I thought Fourth Wing was really fun, and I enjoyed Onyx Storm quite a bit actually. But all of the overall critiques that I have are intact, and the overall things that I like about the story are intact. And then there's a little bit of like mileage varying book to book. What's your experience been with those three?
Yeah, well, I would say I think Violet is a protagonist that I enjoy much more than I enjoy Farah, but I think Sarah J. Maas's prose is a bit better. Something that Rebecca Yarros does inside of her books is there's a lot of contemporary, like the swearing I don't mind because I'm not like a prude about it, but I feel like she uses swearing in the first book especially as just sort of this placeholder for like, I'm tough. There was just like a lot of like fucks and shits and dams inside of there. And also just like a lot of contemporary things that we would say. And so, which is fine. It's not the end of the world, but like you and I, since we're used to sort of like higher fantasy with like flowery language and that sort of stuff, it was like a little, but what I like about that is that then means there isn't this high barrier of entry for people. People feel these are compulsively readable books. And so when people start them and they feel like they can't stop them and then they keep reading. I just wanted to check in with like a couple other emails we got from like Nicola, who said between 2014 and 2023 that she had read maybe 10 books in total. That's almost a decade at one novel a year. And then she read ACOTAR in 1 week.
That's like my pal.
And she said, I felt like I was a teenager again, staying up all night reading, waiting for my coffee while reading on my lunch break. It was like magic.
Man.
Since starting ACOTAR in September last year, I've gone on to read almost 60 books.
Holy shit.
The bulk of which fall into the Romantasy genre, but I've also revisited more traditional fantasy stories, ventured back into broader dystopian stories. Think Who Have Never Known Men, that's a great book, and Wool, and return to my sci-fi roots. My love note is this, quote, Dear Romantasy, thank you for reminding me of the joy I could find in stories. Thank you for bringing me into this community of women and like-minded men who love to lose themselves in these stories. Thank you for helping me prioritize reading. Thank you for helping those of us lost to life stuff find our way back to the stories that fill our hearts with equal parts sorrow and joy.
How lovely.
I just love that.
Yeah, that's the best.
I love that.
Wonderful.
So like the fact that these books, ACOTAR and the Empyrean series, both are easy to read, readable, I don't see that as like a negative at all. I see that as an advantage because once you start that momentum.
Right.
You know, and you're just like reading, and then all of a sudden you're just like, oh my God, this feels so great. What else am I going to read? What am I going to read next? What am I going to read next?
That's like the best feeling in the world.
I used to talk about that all the time because I remember I'm a bit older than you. And so I remember when Harry Potter came out, there was a lot of sneering around Harry Potter of like, kids are only reading, or Twilight for that matter, like kids are only reading one thing. Why are they just reading this one thing?
Yeah.
Aren't there better kids books out there or whatever? And I'm just sort of like, people are reading and they're excited about reading. And getting excited about reading means they'll be excited to read other things.
Right.
And all of that's great. And that doesn't mean that like I think Harry Potter is bad. I just mean I think Harry Potter is a way to open you up to a whole world of stories.
Yes.
And, you know, similarly, Twilight, Hunger Games, whatever it is, it's they're and that's a gift. Like Rebecca Yarros, it's a gift to be able to craft a story that people are like, I can't wait to find out what happens next. Even a story that you and I both agree we can like see a lot of the twists and turns coming.
Yeah.
She's ending her books on cliffhangers. And we're like, dun, dun, dun. Like, let's get the next volume out. And now that we're done with Onyx Storm.
If the next one were out right now, we would start it today.
We would.
Yeah, we would start it today.
We would.
And we would do so gladly.
Yeah. We already talked about sort of like what prompted us to start our romantasy journey. I also want to mention that I was curious because reading I'm aware of the tropes of fantasy. I was way less familiar with the tropes of romance. So I was like, what are some of the other like big romance? And also in the vein of they're probably going to make a movie or a TV show out of this.
Right. And they are making, so Amazon, right, is making Empyrean as a series.
Fourth Wing, and then Hulu is supposed to be doing ACOTAR, but that's a bit stalled now.
Right. And so Ron Moore like left the production?
Yeah.
Crushing.
Too bad.
My guy, as you know.
But I want to say that I read all of the Emily Henry books, and all of those books I believe are currently in production as adaptations. Emily Henry is like hugely popular. Her books are really fun. They're not as smutty as these books. They're modern romances, but they're like all of her characters are like pop culture fluent, and they all like talk in like movie references and stuff like that. It's really fun. Allie Hazelwood, who started as a like Raylo fan fiction writer.
Oh, hell yeah.
So if you look at her, if you look at her book covers, all of the characters look like they are Kylo Ren and Rey, but they're all set in the world of STEM. So they're all like female scientists.
Nice.
Her latest book just came out. I took a pause between Iron Flame and Onyx Storm, and I read her latest book, which is called Deep End. And we actually had a listener write in recommending that you read it because it is crazy smutty. And I think you might have a great time with that one.
Deep End?
Deep End. Yeah.
Great. You read another book in the last. I'm like processing that in real time. How is that possible?
These books are quick reads, and also I had to pack up my entire life to move down here for 2 months, so I needed something to listen to for some of that. And then Christina Lauren and Abby Jimenez, and then I just sort of was like, okay, I feel like I get it. It's not. I don't think it's like necessarily my exact genre, but there are some writers in that world that I think are interesting, and I want to follow. We got some recs from the Bad Babies of other books for people to read if they liked these books.
Some people, including me. I'm ready. Hit me.
The main one is Throne of Glass, which is Sarah J. Maas's other series, which I think a lot of people like even better than ACOTAR is more popular. But I think for people who like both, a lot of people prefer Throne of Glass. So that also I think is in development somewhere for an adaptation.
Okay.
Yeah.
And people are not as high on the Crescent
City, I think, is like her least popular of the series.
Interesting.
hobbitsanddragons@gmail.com if you disagree with me. Lexi suggested something called The Assistant to the Villain series by Hannah Nicole Mayer. I looked it up. This one is spice level low, smut level low.
Okay.
But it features a cast of characters I feel you all wouldn't agree need their own merch immediately, including an ogre who loves to bake and a dragon named Fluffy. So
wonderful.
Fantasy like more romance than like smut mance. You know what I mean? Sex mance. Katie, meanwhile, has a spicy rec. And she says, from Blood and Ash / Flesh and Fire prequel series, Jennifer L. Armentrout. She says, I literally got a dagger with poppies for the female main character, Poppy. And then she also recommends Zodiac Academy prequel and sequel series by sisters Caroline Peckham and Susan Valenti. Zodiac Academy is one that I've seen.
Sisters are co-authoring the...
How does that feel? The smut books?
Yeah.
Would you write with a sibling?
I personally would not.
Okay.
No. But I would. I would write with a friend. Oh, I mean, I would. Yeah.
Okay, great.
I would be thrilled.
The Zodiac Academy, I have seen a lot of people recommend.
Okay.
Katie says, FYI, don't read these at work if you have downtime.
Try us.
Not safe for
Try
work.
us. Try us. We're at work right now, baby.
Taya recommended Once Upon a Broken Heart by Stephanie Garber.
Wait, on that don't read at work front, what's the most like, oh my God, I can feel my cheeks burning experience you've had reading something really sexy in public?
In public?
Yeah.
I try not to, I don't do that in public.
Okay.
It's funny because I was like,
same. Me neither.
Jomi. Tell me yours.
I actually don't.
Tell me yours immediately.
You will appreciate this. You will love it. You're the perfect person to tell. When I was reading A Song of Ice and Fire for the first time.
Sure.
And so you don't know. When I'm reading Empyrean books, like I am prepared at any point for a graphic sex scene, and I am reading these alone. But with Thrones, like I was routinely reading on the subway on the way to and from work in New York.
I miss the subway
out
commute
on a bench
situation. Yeah.
I miss having the opportunity to read on the way to work, but I don't miss being on a subway.
Yeah.
You see my response every time we come in here to the temperature in the room. You can imagine how I am on a subway.
Plus all the aromas.
Oh my God, no.
I do miss the New York subway.
No.
Okay.
But I have such a vivid memory of reading The Lord's Kiss, John and Ygritte in the cave for the first time on the subway, very aware that a very, very seemingly very sweet old lady was like reading it over my shoulder. And I was just like...
And you kept on keeping on?
Oh, I wasn't going to stop.
Were we Kindling or paperbacking?
I was reading... Because I was in transit, I was reading on a Kindle.
Okay.
Yeah, I was reading on a Kindle, highlighting. She was watching what I was highlighting. I think I probably saved the highlighting for later. But yeah, I was like, oh boy, she's just reading. She is reading and watching me read this. And that is an experience that we have shared.
I have had the experience, again, I'll talk about fan fiction in a second, but like fan fiction is one of those where like oftentimes there's nothing, and then all of a sudden you're in the chapter that earned the thing. It's E rating.
Yeah.
And E for explicit. Mm-hmm. If that happens to me, I will close that down and I'll be like,
save it for later.
You know what I mean?
Later. Okay.
But there's no shame in the game of reading that stuff in public is how I feel about that. And I also think that like we got a couple emails about this, and this is a prevailing narrative I've seen where some people are like, why is A Song of Ice and Fire not called Dragon Smut? Mm-hmm. Because George does write sex scenes, and like
George wrote a sex scene where I mean, listen, Pink Mast is a term in the fandom for a reason. Sweet Sam suckled on.
Yeah, but here's the deal.
A teat full of breast milk, and he loved it.
I think George is incredibly bad at writing sex scenes. Mm-hmm. And personally. Mm-hmm. And I don't think anyone reads A Song of Ice and Fire for the sex scenes.
Correct. Yeah. Right.
So I don't, whereas people can identify chapter and verse the sections of the Empyrean saga that involve acrobatic, violent sex scenes.
I told you this already to this point.
Yeah.
Our phones are spying on us, etc. I have been served so many reels about Onyx Storm. And I was trying to avoid spoilers, but also like the memes are good.
Yeah.
The reels are good. So I was watching some of them. And there was one.
Because you already knew I was ahead of you in Onyx Storm. And you were like, where's the smut?
I was like, so chapter 49.
Yeah,
like, I knew the exact chapter
exactly.
that I was waiting to get to because I had seen an incredible Instagram reel. I wish I could remember. I'm so sorry. I wish I could remember who posted it. Where the woman was, well, I'm going to save it because we're going to get to that later. But on the chair and doing the thing. And then her partner walks in and she flops down. He's like, what are you doing? Reading? And I was like, oh my God, can't wait to find out what this is about.
Incredible.
And then I did.
And then you did.
And then I did.
Couple other recs. Taya recommended, this one's also light on the smut, Once Upon a Broken Heart Larry recommended I Roved Out in Search of Truth and Love, a webcomic by Alex Flowers. And Larry said, though not necessarily romantic, it is certainly sexy, tropey, and some of the most beautifully rendered comic art I've found. NSFW in the highest order. The amount of bodily fluids portrayed crosses the border of silly and travels deep into the land of absurd. I hope you enjoy an elvish romp with Cinder and Mary. Are you going to be consuming this?
I'm ordering it immediately. Yeah. Wow. Jeez. Yeah. Okay. The amount of bodily fluids portrayed crosses the border. I'm eager to explore further.
Last but not least, Maggie says, Millivane's A Heart of Blood and Ashes. Oftentimes my issue with books labeled Romantasy is that they are never true melding of both genres. Mm-hmm. A Heart of Blood of Ashes is to me a perfect 50-50. We have some truly classic fantasy elements in this book, and the romance feels specific to the story and true. Also, Mal, there is a really good smut in this. Like, really good. In the second book, yes, I've smuggled the second book rec into this. Please be proud.
We are.
The best friend of the two leads, different couple in this book, is a giant snow cat named Caleb who descended from a god. Oh. You will love him.
I already do.
Yeah.
I already do.
That one seems, of all the recs, I feel like Maggie really nailed you.
Oh, my
with
God.
That one.
Jeez. Wow.
Fanfiction Corner, are you ready?
I'm thrilled to be back on Fanfiction Corner with you.
Okay.
It's always a treat. We're honored to get this update from you. You've given us a couple glimpses into your consumption previously, and I know the Bad Babies have been eager for an update.
I'm not a fanfiction expert. I really have just one thing that I read.
You have a particular passion, yeah.
And what's funny about this, which is, if you've not listened to me talk about this before, it's the very, very extremely popular Draco and Hermione, Dramione, Harry Potter fanfiction.
Yes.
And reading Violet and Xaden and reading Feyre and Rhys, they're all so Dramione coded. It's not even funny. This is just the same dynamic over and over and over again, and we all really like it. Yeah. So this is what's true. And in terms of Dramione and Romantasy, obviously there's magic, there's magical creatures, there's all this sort of stuff inside of these stories. There is a whole subsect of Harry Potter fanfiction, which is AU non-magical, and it's just Hermione and Draco go to university and they're normal people, and I'm that's not for me. I don't want that. I want the magic spells. I want all the other things that come with it. Sure. So this is Romantasy to me. Yeah. Is the Dramione fanfiction. So Lexi wrote in to ask if we were tapped in on all of the Draco and Hermione fanfic that is being adapted into traditionally published novels this year. Oh. Lexi says the stories have unlocked both a new way to engage with the characters while being a bit detached from J.K. Rowling, and more importantly, a deep yearning in my heart for Draco that may in fact rival Mal's feelings for young Harrison Ford.
Come on. I mean, wow.
You what say a bar. That, but
what a bar.
Until you read some Dramione, I feel like you need to sort of press pause on.
I mean, young Harrison Ford. It's just, oh no, I'm not scoffing. I'm just saying this would mean that it was the most appealing thing in the history of the world.
It genuinely might be.
Great. Okay.
Here are the 3 books that are coming out quite soon.
Okay, tell me.
The big one is a book called Alchemized by Senlin Yu, which was a story called Manacled. It's coming out summer 2025. Manacled was on AO3, which is the fanfiction website, our archive of our own. You can sort by popularity.
Yeah.
Kudos. Manacled was at the top of the Dramione thing since I started reading it.
Okay.
Through now. Yeah. It is by far and away the most popular Dramione fanfiction. It is quite long. It is quite dark. It's got some Handmaid's Tale elements to it and that sort of stuff like that. So basically what she's done is she's taken that story and 50 Shades of Grey started as Twilight fanfiction. This is an old thing where you just sort of reskin the fanfiction you've written. So she has taken out all the Draco and Hermione, renamed the characters, but the story remains the same.
Got it. Okay. Interesting.
There's one called The Irresistible Urge to Fall for Your Enemy by Brigitte Knightley, which was this other, I would say the second most popular Dramione fanfiction, Draco Malfoy and the Mortifying Ordeal of Being in Love, which is coming out July 2025. And last but not least, Julie Soto, Rose and Chains, which was a story called The Auction, coming out July 2025. Draco Malfoy and the Mortifying Ordeal of Being in Love, if you can't tell from the title. And I talked about both Manacled and this one on our Valentine's Day pod last year before they were, I think, traditionally published. That one's more of a rom-com. Like very light in tone, very funny. This is a really interesting moment for traditional publishing. They're of course looking for romantasy wherever they can find it based on the numbers that they found.
Yeah.
And fanfiction's a really good place to go diving for this. You've got a story that's like pretty much
people
already
like.
written.
Yeah.
People already like it.
Right.
And all the people who have already read Manacled are automatically going to read Alchemized.
Right.
You know, they've already read it, but they're going to read it again.
So what level of tweaking beyond the character names is there typically?
I don't, it depends, I think.
It varies.
Yeah, you can because I think if you read 50 Shades not knowing it was Twilight fanfiction, I don't think you would think that had anything to do with Bella and Edward. But things like Red, White, and Royal Blue, a very popular book that's based on, I talked about this last time, I think, fanfiction about Jesse Eisenberg. You know, like it's the fanfiction as the origin for stories. You can dramatically reskin or you can write like lightly reskin. But either way, Hermione's super popular and the publishers are taking notice. And if like Alchemized as a book takes off, then we're going to get like an Alchemized miniseries. You know what I mean? It's all perfectly legal and above board. In terms of like how much do you tweak it? Yeah. You definitely tweak it enough that J.K. Rowling cannot sue you for it. You know?
And what I'm interested in is how much is tweaked from, like how much of what was in Manacled is tweaked for Alchemized.
Right.
Like not just in terms of
No, that's what I mean.
Yeah, are sometimes people writing a fanfic that is 7 chapters and then the book version is going to be 45.
Right.
Like how much expanding of the story is it, or is it actually like we're just changing the names and publishing this as a book?
I would say Manacled, which was a very long fanfic, is not going to be sort of probably expanded on, though I believe that the one based on the auction is going to be a duology.
Okay.
So I think that, you know, she's probably going to expand on that one. But in terms of like not getting sued, fanfiction itself falls under this sort of like fair use because you're not you're not profiting from it. It's free for people to read. And so you're not profiting from it. So you cannot get sued by Rowling or anyone else unless you are selling it. And there was this whole drama inside the fanfiction community where people were taking fan fictions, printing them out, binding them, and selling them on like Etsy or stuff like that, so that you could have a physical copy with a beautiful cover that you loved. But that violates
trouble for that.
That violates legally, and so a lot of people are taking their fan fictions down because like there was no controlling it. Anyway, a whole drama.
Jeez.
And better news.
Yeah.
And we are going to get back to the dragon smut in a second, but though sometimes there are dragons in these stories as well.
I should hope so.
Shania and Carolyn both wrote in. This just like really pleased me. Both of them wrote in to say that a fanfic that I read that I recommended last year, De Traquet, was not only their favorite fanfic they read, it was their favorite thing they read last year. And I'm here to tell you, it was in progress when I recommended last year. It is since finished. So Shania was like, "What did you think of the ending?
You loved it."
I'm here to tell you, and I just preached for so long about how we should not be embarrassed about the things we love.
Yeah.
This might be one of my favorite books of all time. Like,
great.
Genuinely.
Oh my God.
I keep revisiting sections of it. I think it is incredible. So if you've not read
I love this.
De Traquet, if you are a fan fiction reader and you've not read this, if you're a Hermione reader, if you've not read this, if you're anything, you've not read this, I just think it is one of the best written things I've ever enjoyed.
And that's a good entry point for people who have not consumed any fan fiction and want to try something, you think? Is that a good starting point or build up to it?
I might slightly build up to it, but like, especially if you're looking for, it does have an E for explicit, but it takes a while because we're with Hermione sort of like for a few years before she leaves Hogwarts, et cetera, et cetera. So, okay. And then I have some new recommendations.
Amazing.
My current obsession is a story called The Witch King in Wiltshire.
Hell yeah.
Wiltshire.
Great title.
Yeah, exactly. Isn't it so good?
Really good.
By, I think it's Quinn Ackred, One Rose, I would say is the name of this author. It is one of the filthiest things I've ever, like, this is the thing for me. I'm so excited for you to be on your Romantasy journey because you're like, wow, these sex scenes in the Empyrean. And I'm like, yes.
Love them. Yeah, love them.
And
yeah,
there's so much more waiting for you.
I mean, when we talked about this last year, I was like really eager to dive in because I as I mentioned then, I used to read fan fiction in college all the time and loved it, but I just haven't. I don't know why. Haven't read it in years. Not because I don't want to or wouldn't love it.
No,
I am excited to get back into it.
It certainly.
I know it's for me,
but it certainly still has more of a stigma than I would say Romantasy does right now. Mm. The Witch King in Wilshire is one of the filthiest things I've ever read in my entire life, with the most lyrical, poetic prose. Like there's just full chapters of like the most bonkers things you've ever read with the most beautiful language you've ever read at the same time. I can't get over every time she posts another chapter. It's just one comment from me that's just like, and I never comment on fan fiction. I'm like, this is the best thing I've ever read. This is the best thing I've ever read. This is the best thing I've ever read. It's so good.
What do you do when you have the experience where you find a story you love, it's in progress, and then
it gets abandoned?
Never finish. The George R. R. Martin, if you will.
It happens.
Yeah, because that's I remember experiencing that a couple times back in the day, and it was like agonizing.
Or like sometimes there's just like a year-long pause, and then it comes back, and it feels like great, thrilling. I'm just gonna run through a couple other recommendations for folks. Chin Up by Nihilistic is an in progress one right now. Also incredibly filthy. This is a face-off retelling, and it's really something. It's really funny.
Face-off retelling.
It's really, really smart, and it's very smutty at the same time. You Do It For Me by ZB3. This is insanely smutty, but also very sweet. I cannot get over this one. You Do It For Me is just like, basically she started as I think a single chapter experiment, and then she just kept going with like, how many other sort of like escalations can I write while maintaining the like tender heart of this story? Mm-hmm. It's quite amazing. Lionheart, which is not incredibly smutty, but it is very, very, very well written by Green Tea Cup. One called Bloody, Slutty, and Pathetic by a writer called What Murder is the name of the author. This is truly unhinged sub Draco. Okay. Draco is an absolute like criminal, but also he is the titular Bloody, Slutty, and Pathetic of this story. A Hard Road to Hoe by Blessed Toaster, where Draco is an assassin, is very funny and very smutty. And last but not least, I think I mentioned this last time, but I'm just going to do it again. Remember One Thing by Pacific Rimbo. And this is not Germani. It is Pansy Parkinson and Neville Longbottom, which is like the second very, very popular ship that's been growing and growing and growing inside of this community. Right. And it actually really, really works in a way that you would be surprised.
Interesting.
But this one's absolutely beautiful.
Was the journey of discovery for that story like, okay, I'm on AO3, I'm reading a lot of these stories, I see that this is also popular, I'm going to check it out?
It was more, I really liked this author, and I was like, what else has she written? And this one was really popular, and I was like, oh. So that's about as far as we've gone. So those are my recommendations. Wow. And I think they're all really, really well written.
Yeah.
And most of them are also really, really, really filthy. So in the spirit of what we're here to do today.
Great stuff.
Our listener Shannon wrote in asking for Steve and Bucky Stuckey recommendations in the year of Thunderbolts. Mm-hmm. I have not read any Stuckey fan fiction.
This seems astonishing to me.
This is a clarion call to the bad babies. Yeah. If you're a Stuckey fan fiction
make
reader,
some recommendations.
Send us hobbitsanddragons@gmail.com. I've not read any. And then Carolyn, and this is a good transition into our next section where I am going to hand the mic over to you. Carolyn says, Romantasy is not my preferred genre of smut, but I'd like to recommend one specific piece of ACOTAR fan fiction, Embers and Light, by an author called Dusk and Starlight. And so ACOTAR, we've talked a bunch about Empyrean. We mentioned Feyre and Rhys, but tell us a little bit more about your journey into ACOTAR. And a year ago, I read you.
You did.
Some wing-based smut.
You did.
And you have since experienced the entirety of it for yourself.
Boy, have I.
Tell me your thoughts and feelings.
So I'm really having fun with the series. I had I had a little bit of a hard time getting started with the first book, which I started last summer on a family trip to the Outer Banks. And then it ended up like picking up, and I got into a better rhythm with it when I got home. And I would say I enjoyed it, but I didn't love it.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that was slightly... So I sort of had like, again, kind of a little bit of an inverted experience with this and Empyrean, because I actually found this in a really kind of cool and exciting way surprising to read. You know, like when Feyre, again, spoilers, I was not surprised, of course, because it's like the premise of the series, and I understood that how the journey got started, right? That she's going to end up in...
It's sort of like a Beauty
the
and
realm
the
of the
Beast
high fae.
retelling sort of thing.
Yeah. But I knew like nothing about the story beyond that. Nothing other than the completely out of context passage you had read for me.
Yeah.
So everything with Tamlin at the Spring Court, but like once we got under the mountain, and we're like, actually from the first moment that Rhys appeared, and then of course he's very present under the mountain, and the trials.
Now, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Now that you've read 2 different Romantasy things.
Yeah.
When Rhys first shows up, were you like, oh, since I've met Xaden, I know what this is?
So this was exactly what I was going to say next. Like, so I enjoyed the mystery of the plot and what was going to happen when, and everything that leads toward the High Lords all coming together to revive Feyre. I was like, okay, interesting. I found it disorienting to have read already at that point Fourth Wing and Iron Flame, and then go to this, even though I know and acknowledge that this came first.
Yeah.
Because Rhys and Xaden are so similar. Like, not just you're kind of like, everybody thinks
broody,
you're the bad guy and you're the asshole. But I'll be the one who sees your sweetheart that no one else is allowed to glimpse. Like, literally the nature of some of their powers are the same, you know, like the shadow and the darkness and all that. So that just was hard for me to...
And credit to Lee Bardugo, because the Darkling and Shadow and Bone got there first before either Rhys or Xaden.
And like it's, you know, the fact that it is an archetype and obviously a potent one, an effective one, I think allowed me to get over it pretty quickly. But it was like, at first I'm just like, okay, so clearly this is going to be the guy, not Tamlin. And I had never really liked Tamlin, so that was fine with me. Yeah, I guess
the first book is tough because nobody likes Tamlin.
Yeah.
And then she's like, it's a bait and switch. I was like, you took way too long with that bait to get to the switch.
Yeah.
Is how I feel about that.
Yeah, and I think also then it's like, probably if you did like Tamlin, that's a pretty bad feeling. Like, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
But book 2, Mist and Fury. So you had read me that very scintillating stretch. My 2 pals who have read the series cover to cover multiple times and just love it.
Amazing.
Both said that the second book was their favorite. So I was really excited to read the second book and really tore through it and loved it. And like the you mentioned the romance tropes, you know, that like forced proximity trope of like putting these people together, and then you just kind of know that something's going to happen, and you're excited to see when the characters start to admit to themselves what we know is inevitable, etc. It's just like formula that works for a reason.
Yeah.
And the widening of that group and that friend set, and like learning. Again, the similarities are a little like, it has been a little bit distracting to me. Xaden's got his private secret world, and we learn that his true motives are X, and same thing with Rhys, right? So it's just very similar, but I did find it in both cases, like that part to be pretty compelling, actually. So, you know, that's better than if the part that had been super similar was less compelling.
And I had the opposite experience where I
Of the
read
order.
ACOTAR first.
Yeah.
And when I got to Fourth Wing, as soon as she meets Xaden on like
Right. You're just like,
the
this
moment,
is Reese.
I was like, oh,
yeah.
there's Reese.
Yeah.
Okay. So like, yeah, it depends which order you get into. But you're like,
I
oh,
think
okay.
Xaden had imprinted on me.
Yeah, of course.
Right. So
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay. Like, and we just like doing Xaden again, even though, again, for the record, I know Reese came first. But I had just ended up just like
Book
ensnared.
Great stuff. Yeah.
By Reese and Book 2.
Yeah.
Holy shit. And, both of the series do this well. The building and mounting and escalating of the sexual tension.
Did you say building, mounting, and escalating?
Building, mounting, escalating, quailing. A lot of talk of quailing. That, like, I'm like, because you've got to be fucking patient in Book 2.
Yes.
You're waiting, and waiting. And then you're like, they have wound up in this filthy fucking hotel room. And there's only one bed.
Yeah. And
even then, you just get a taste of what awaits. And I'm like, yeah, we're in the hands of an expert here.
Master.
This is just, my God. So that was really fun. I really enjoyed that book. And then actually, I immediately wanted to start the third book. I made a tragic mistake, which was I was out book shopping, went to the Skylight, one of my faves.
Great.
And love it. And I, because I am an idiot and had not had enough coffee that day or something, I don't know, picked up what I thought was the third book.
Oh, right.
And just looked at the back cover. It was the fifth book. But the first sentence of the back, told me something I did not want to know. So I'm annoyed with myself for making that mistake. But then I grabbed the third book and I started it right away, but this was all pretty recent. And I actually decided, like, I was worried that if I read it and was like a halfway or 3/4 of the way and then had to stop for Onyx Storm, again, it would be like disorienting and weird, and then I didn't want to do that. So I read a couple chapters because I couldn't resist. And then I'm like, I'm going to put this away and wait. I knew we were on a timeline, right, for Onyx Storm, both for this and because I'm reading it once again with my college pals for book club. We're discussing it in person together next week.
Oh, fun.
In plain earshot of strangers passing us at a cafe, presumably. Can't wait. And I'm looking forward to continuing it. So my understanding is that the fourth book, which is like the novella, is not something people love, but we'll see. We'll see. I've really enjoyed chatting with our colleague Megan Schuster about these stories. She has just torn through them, and we have a lot of fun talking about them. And
it's a community building.
It's great.
I love it. How did you feel? I read specifically a section where they're talking, like, this is the thing about Romantasy, specifically Romantasy. We talked about how when Xaden and Violet have sex in all of these books, because we're basically bending elements a lot of time in this book series. She's a lightning wielder. He's a shadow wielder. So it's just sort of like we're lighting things on fire with lightning. Yeah. We're wrapping things with shadows. We're binding appendages with the shadows, which act as like sort of tentacles or like whatever. I feel like we can get much more imaginative with the shadows than she's gotten with so far. We shall see. And with A Court of Thorn Roses, like the fact that like this Reese, who is a fae, who has wings. Yeah. And the wings themselves have
wings.
Like erogenous zones to them.
Yes, very sensitive.
Like when you are writing like fantasy smut and you've got like soul bonds and mind bonds and all sort of stuff like that, or like magic or this, that, and the other thing, we can suspend things, we can do this and that. It just gives you so much more opportunity inside of your smut writing that like your straight arrow romance writers don't get to play with.
Totally.
So like the wings of it all. How did that work for you?
Wonderfully.
Very well. Great.
Wonderfully.
Great.
And even just honestly, before any of the sex scenes, like the fact that we learn to winnow. That's very fun. But he's part Illyrian. He can fly. And that closeness, right? Of like carrying her. It just, again, really helped to stoke that flame. But also like the intimacy, because it's sex and it's passion, but I think both of these series do a good job of, using sex for something that is obviously a deeply emotional thing for these couples, not just a physical thing.
Yeah.
And so like with Reese and his wings, that maybe is my, I don't know, one of my favorite examples of that so far, where like the wings are not only sensitive in a way that brings him pleasure, like there's danger there, right? Like
There's
some
trust.
vulnerability,
Yeah.
right? And so to let somebody touch his wings is like a rare act of closeness and care that not a lot of people are afforded. One of the great mental images that you can be treated to is the kneeling on the bed with the wings out and get to see the thigh tats for the first time. Wonderful stuff.
Did you look up any fan art for
I
ACOTAR?
did, so I have Googled, I will say, because I've not finished the series with extreme care, because I'm like actually really worried about getting spoiled.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I did want to see how people were drawing Reese.
Mm-hmm.
So I Googled him and just like really tried. And it was easy because I need corrective lenses. I need glasses and can't see. It was actually pretty easy to not see the words. And I just got to look at some of the pictures, which was nice. And I have looked at some fan art for Xaden, though there's a whole thing as well, right? Because when Fourth Wing came out, and so many people were drawing Xaden as a white character, and he is not.
He is not.
So that was.
It's been an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
Okay. We've gone through some very sane and normal discussion of this, and now it's time.
This has been quite tame.
Oh, very tame.
Yeah, given how we teased it.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Okay. Send the kids away. We're doing a segment that we're going to call, and this is Mallory's idea, diagramming the top 3 Xaden and Violet sex scenes from the Empyrean Saga.
To be clear, and this is the nature of collaboration.
Yeah.
I requested that we diagram one scene.
Yeah.
And you expanded it to 3.
Sure did.
And that is partnership.
It's a trilogy. So we're going to get out some whiteboards that Mallory sourced.
Wonderful. Thank you to the team for hunting these down.
For finding them.
In response to my 9 p.m. Slack asking, do we have whiteboards?
Do we have whiteboards from the live show from last year? Oh. We've got one sex scene we've got one sex scene per Empyrean book.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They're all quite famous. I picked the most famous ones. Would you say?
Absolutely. And the Iron Flame one is Pantheon. God tier. I can't wait to get to that one.
We're going to start with Fourth Wing.
Yeah. Spoiler, the Onyx Storm one is the one that I'm like,
wait, what? How? That's the one that started this. So the first 2 are going to be easy.
Yes.
And then the third one, we're going to have some problems.
Okay. I'm excited.
I'm going to read.
Okay.
I'm going to try not, because you're drawing. So I'm going to read. Okay. I'm going to try not to die of embarrassment.
I'm happy to read them if you prefer. You let me know.
Just
tap me in. If
once again, the all-male lineup in the production booth over there for being here with us today.
Yes.
Fourth Wing.
Okay.
Furniture Demolition Derby. And this is a Yellow Jackets reference. This credenza is a fuck fest.
Fuck fest. Wait, quick show of hands. Have any of you read these books, or will this be your first exposure to these stories, what we're about to read?
I got like a third of the way through Iron Flame.
No, Fourth Wing.
Fourth Wing.
Yeah.
Fourth Wing.
Okay.
Steve was listening to Fourth Wing.
John?
Oh, sorry.
I have no idea what's going on.
Okay.
Great.
Wonderful. Let's do it.
Chapter 30.
I can't draw, by the way.
I'm not going to get fired, right? You're my boss. It's going to be fine.
This is content. This is work.
Reaching up,
Okay.
I grasp the top edge of the armoire with one hand so I can rock back with more force, meeting the drive of his hips, taking him deeper, harder.
Wait, I'm already top edge of the armoire.
Yeah.
How tall are armoires, though? Maybe this was a good one to diagram.
Yeah.
I picture an armoire as being quite tall. Violet is canonically quite short.
He's got her like up around him. Her thighs are wrapped around his waist.
This is the problem with picking an excerpt.
I'm so
instead
sorry.
Of reading the whole damn
We're not
thing.
reading the whole chapter. Okay.
So
they're both,
he's
he's
grasping.
standing. She's like straddling him standing. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep. The top.
Uh-huh.
Rock back with more
Force, meeting the drive of his hips, taking him deeper, harder. He drags one of my nightgown straps off my shoulder, and the cool night air kisses the hardened peak of my nipple.
This is
A
great.
heartbeat before his hot mouth covers it.
Okay. Yes.
The sensation spiral, spinning and coiling, forming a tight knot of pleasure so deep within me, the tension is sublimely unbearable. The armoire door groans, then splinters off the hinges, and Zayden's shadows whip out, protecting me as the frame snaps and wood crashes around us. My power flares, rising in answer to his, sizzling beneath my skin as I grab a hold of his shoulders, my mouth finding his. There's no stopping. We can't stop. So that's chapter 30 of Fourth Wing, in which they break the armoire.
Yes, the shadow. I just don't know what I've drawn. It appears, if I can critique my own work,
I feel like you should show us as you explain what's happening.
So it appears that I have drawn. It appears that I have drawn. Here's the armoire.
Yeah.
And so. I think I made an initial mistake with just some scaling. And also direction of Violet's arms. And here are some breasts, right? And I have accidentally made Zayden, this is supposed to be a tongue, but I accidentally made Zayden the Pixar lamp. Instead of a sex god. And that was not what I was intending, but it is what happened.
Oh my God.
And then here are the shadows, and then, we're going to get some lightning
Some
strikes.
lightning and some fire. Yeah. That's a crown, but also fire. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Sexy.
What do you think?
Sexy.
Would you have drawn it differently? This is...
I like how they're
gonna
floating.
Sign this here. Yep, just a Mallory Rubin original right here.
I can't. This was the easy one, so I can't wait.
Here, I'll do some more shadows so that they're
obscure
holding
them
up.
in shadows.
The
tongue.
He kind of looks like Dio, the little droid from
He does look like
Dio.
Dio.
I don't know what happened there. Okay. I have to erase this, sadly.
Oh
Luckily, it's been committed to film.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. I never claimed to be an artiste. Just an enthusiast.
What do you think Preston, our rat friend, thinks of all of this?
Oh, man. Preston likes levity, so I feel like Preston's favorite character is Riddick, I think.
Oh, 100%.
Preston likes a zinger. This is good stalling while I erase my really weirdly large but also tiny drawing. Okay.
What do you think Preston thinks of Broccoli, the kitten?
Oh, man. Broccoli. Great stuff. I thought it was really wonderful. I love an orange tabby. I thought it was really wonderful that that Broccoli went back with the squad, and
we got several emails about Broccoli.
I should hope so.
Okay.
I should hope so. Okay.
Thank you. Iron Flame, chapter 48.
This is my favorite sex scene in the story so far. You have selected a mere fragment of it in my memory.
Yeah, but this is the one that we want to draw, I think. Okay.
Yeah, but in my memory, it's like a 50-page.
My chair, my house, my woman, how big was that throne exactly is the question. I should say, we got an email that I did not get to from, I think it's Adam, whose wife did like a sort of book reading camp with her friends for Onyx Storm. They like rented an Airbnb. They all went there when Onyx Storm came out. They had all this like swag and stuff like that. And they had these like really adorable cookies that were like decorated in Fourth Wing sort of quotes and drawings, and one of the cookies just said, "My chair, my house, my woman." Incredible.
Great stuff.
Okay.
I
think "My chair, my house, my woman" might be the most famous of the Empyrean saga quotes, right?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll have to check the total on the Kindle highlights. That's always a good indicator.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Have I mentioned I love this chapter?
The Kindle highlights are bizarre because usually they're just sort of like, "I love you." And I'm like, okay, but like,
yeah,
everyone says that.
It's interesting for me personally. If I'm reading a Kindle, I'll just highlight a beautiful, not necessarily these, but just in general, like a beautiful passage that I love. But often because if I'm using my Kindle, it's often for work, I'll like highlight something I want to remember or like a mythology nugget.
Yeah.
So then I've lost kind of my ability to understand how most people use them. But Okay.
I feel like people are collecting quotes from their wedding vows based on what gets highlighted in these books. You know what I mean? Like, or to stitch on a pillow. I don't know. Chapter 48. He grasps one of my thighs and drapes it over the arm of the throne.
Yes. Okay. How do I
Start with the throne.
Gotta get some. If only I knew how to draw, I could get the right like angles. This is really frankly a chapter about getting the right angles.
This is a geometry chapter.
Okay.
Okay. He's grasped one of her thighs, drapes it over the arm of the throne, then braces his knee at the edge of the cushion and lifts my other leg over his shoulder as he slides down my body.
I'm trying to get basically a cat or a kite. I'm trying to draw.
Okay, I gotta slow down.
Okay, hold on.
Draw the throne.
Okay. I don't know how to draw.
This was your idea.
I don't know how to draw. Wait, let me start over. Let me start this one over. I'm gonna keep it simple. I'm gonna go with Okay. All right. Chair.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just a chair.
It's a chair.
It's got arms though.
It's got the arms are crucial. Okay. Oh, wait, but okay.
He grasps one of my thighs and drapes it over the arm of the throne. Then braces his knee at the edge of the cushion and lifts my other leg over his shoulder. Okay. One leg over the throne, one leg over his shoulder. His knee is braced at the edge of the cushion.
A cushion.
Don't worry about it. Edge of the seat.
Okay.
His knee, edge of the seat. Her leg over one arm of the chair. Other leg over his shoulder. These are all incredibly athletic, strong.
Yes.
They do their dragon Pilates people. So bear that in mind.
Oh my god. I've drawn like a ladybug or something. This is just
the thigh muscles are important for gripping as we ride our dragons.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually can't do a stick figure for this one. I feel like I've got to we need some. Okay.
Are you ready? Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
As he slides down my body, lowering his head as he works his fingers ceaselessly, beckoning the endless waves. Oh gods, I'm going to die right here, right now. And this is Xaden. Every time I have to sit with the assembly, I'll be thinking about this, about you. He slides his hand. How are we doing? Great. He slides his hand under my ass and lifts me to his mouth, then replaces his fingers with the thick stab of his tongue.
Again, I'd like to just state for the record that this is one of the most important chapters to ever exist in the history of fiction.
I can't wait to see how you've rendered it artistically.
For 30 pages, Xaden Ryerson performs oral sex
and then refuses
on Violet Sorrengail on his family throne.
Refuses reciprocation because he wants her to know that he worships her.
Yes. And then at the end of that chapter, when she's bringing up Kat.
Yeah.
And he's like, I've never fucked her with my tongue.
And that's important because in book 3, when we were trying to remember who characters are, you're like, I remember Kat. He never fucked her with his tongue. That's a real problem, I have to say, with Onyx Storm, with Love and Respect. All time, who's that?
Oh, dude, the first maybe 3 chapters.
Yeah.
I was flipping back to the map and character guide with a frequency and a quickness. I'm prepared to show you my drawing.
Okay. I was going to
Please. No, go ahead.
stall a little more?
Just
Full-blown spoilers for the end of Onyx Storm. There's a big, there's a mole, a betrayal reveal. And I was literally
yeah.
Who?
Oh, I meant to ask you because you said there was someone you were...
I mean, not really. I'm he's an instructor at the university, but does he have a personality beyond that? No, not Pancheck. Who? Okay, show me your drawing.
I feel better about this one.
Okay, great.
No, perhaps I shouldn't.
I think we can only go up from the armoire situation.
I call this I have fucked her with my tongue.
Pleasing the stars. Please talk to us about the stars.
So the stars, Violet's, earlier we were recording another podcast. We were talking about a couple that were shipping, and that podcast is for later, so I won't go into the details. But you used the term
seeing stars.
Seeing stars.
Mm-hmm.
It's been stuck in my head all day.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Violet. This is Violet's signature silver hair.
Yeah,
right here.
I could definitely.
These
tell.
are the stars that she's seeing. These are so. Let me color them in here just in case you're missing them. These are the thighs.
Yeah.
Because so much of this is about the exact angle that Violet is the
One
recline
arm of the
angle.
throne.
Yeah, and
but here's the
angling.
Problem. Here's the problem. This is an excellent piece of art.
Thank you. This is Xaden.
Yeah.
Right here.
And you would think on
that's his tongue.
You would think on his knees, right?
Yeah, yes.
But his knee is braced against the cushion of the throne.
He's quite tall. So I guess yeah. Yeah, let's see.
And then he's bent over her.
So
that was my question.
He's
Do you think, with love and respect, I don't need to get too personal with Rebecca Yarros, but do you think she makes her husband, with whom she's had many, many, many blonde children, practice these with her? Like,
so I've thought about this a lot in general.
Yeah.
Like if you're writing this stuff.
Okay.
What a thrill for your partner to get to go around being like, I inspired Xaden. Whether or not that's true, who knows? But like, God, that must be a great feeling. Though obviously it's not always the case. I'm thinking of
Xaden appears to have 9 different appendages. Is that what's happening there?
Well, I think that's often how it feels, right? Because he's such a
gifted
lover.
He's beckoning endless ways.
He's such a gifted lover. He's a very generous lover.
Yeah.
One of the great things about Xaden is, he's always saying things to her like, I love that little sound you make when you come. He wants to not just bring her to an orgasm so shattering that we get an italicized shattered or unraveled. He wants to then do it again and again and again.
Give me another.
And again.
Yeah. We got all night.
They just exist inside of the Fleabag season 2 9 times. Yeah. That's their life.
Yes.
Except when it isn't, and then they are kept apart, or they don't feel like they could touch.
Shout
or
out
Xaden's
Rebecca
worried about
Yarros,
losing control.
For her ability to invent new scenarios in every book wherein they can't touch each other. Excellent work, Mallory Rubin. 10 out of 10, except for where his knees are.
Okay.
But that's okay.
So this is the one that really I was like, wait. What is happening?
Onyx Storm.
I actually was.
This is titled.
You might need to draw this one because I was confused by this.
Her knees went where and his went, huh? This is in 2 sections. This is in 2 sections because there's 2. There's 2 moments.
Oh my god!
There is. Xaden's
there's
signature
a wonderful
move.
oral sexing as usual.
Yes, there's Xaden's signature move, which is going down on her.
Yes.
And then there's what happens next.
There's a reason that we all love Xaden, and there are many, but that's one of them. So yeah, that was pretty easy to understand. This also involves a chair, though.
He lifts one of my knees to the top. Okay, so he's sitting in a chair.
Yes. He's in the
already
armchair.
sitting there. And I have to imagine the arms of this chair are rather
This was the Instagram reel I saw. So it was like, I mean, I would do it if we had a chair. I would if we had a chair that I thought could
more
support
stable,
it. But
stable
perhaps,
chair.
thankfully, and wonderfully, we don't. Yeah, so he's like lifting her knees up to the arms of the chair.
Yeah,
and she is facing him.
Yes,
but
he
just goes
what's
to
the height?
town.
Yeah. So what's the height of the arms of the chair so that when she's kneeling on it?
Okay. Let me do this one first.
I will
we get to
describe
the
this
second
part.
portion.
He lifts one of my knees to the top of the
Can't believe I have to draw another chair.
I know. That's the real problem. It's the furniture.
Who knew?
It's the armoire and the chairs. Okay.
So
he lifts one of my knees to the top of a padded chair arm and then the other. Okay. So one knee on each, straddling him, right?
Okay.
And stares up at me with a wicked smirk as his hands slide to my ass. Grab hold, love. Before I can ask where, shadows, the aforementioned shadow tentacles, shadows tug my hands to the top of the upholstered chair back and hold them there.
Chair back.
What are you worshiping?
Okay.
He lifts my ass and brings my hips straight to his mouth.
I've already really gravely erred in how I'm. This is just what. What? I've like drawn a lollipop or a flower. What? You might have to get in on this one. This
I
one's
want
like
to once again emphasize that this was your idea. Okay.
And then
I don't think you can really see, but can you kind of see what I'm going for here?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to do.
Yeah.
That kind of looks like Vecna. That's pretty good. Okay,
It's
so
not terrible, but the point is I think that the arms of the chair are a bit high.
Yeah. I've decided to skip the chair and just
have her splay in the yeah. But the back of the chair is very high. That's where her hands are shadow bound.
The chair would be like
yeah. Sure. Okay. Step 2.
Okay. Yeah, this is where this was all very clear to me and frankly quite exciting.
It's great. Step 2.
It did seem kind of I think there's a lot of stuff about in we're now skipping ahead a little bit. There's a lot of like stuff about quivering thighs, and it's like from the pleasure, but also it of shadows or not, didn't seem like the most comfortable position.
Yeah, he could have supported her a bit more.
He's holding her in the shadows, holding her top, but like the knees on the arm, I don't know. Still,
it does say a padded chair arm.
That's true.
Okay, so it's like
I'm being thoughtful about Violet's knees.
You're a very thoughtful person. As someone who has with
they're
knees
often
yourself.
wrapped.
Oh yeah, they are. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, but this is where I was like,
So
I need help understanding.
After the shattering and the unraveling and the seeing of stars, Xaden slips out from under her. So she's still shadow bound to the chair.
I believe saying that she's so slick, he'll be able to slide right in.
And that's why you're here. So she's still facing the chair back, knees still on the arms of the chair.
Okay.
Yeah,
and he gets up for a minute, which was
slides
part of my
out from underneath her.
Yeah, very confusing.
Why?
Because how big is the chair?
That's why I said, how high are the arms on the chair? I think they have to
huge.
I think they have to be like. I think it has to be a chair that's like. The arms are up here. So he slides out from underneath.
Yeah, he's like. I guess he's like going under like a slip and slide there, based on what they just did. So
okay. He slides out from underneath her.
Yeah,
and then
he goes over. He does a thing.
He draws my right knee down to the seat. Okay, so her knees were both on the arm.
She's still facing the back.
She's still facing the back. So
he's behind her.
One of her knees goes down to the seat.
Which
The right knee.
Yeah, and then the other knee is still up.
And then he puts his left knee on the seat.
Yeah.
So her right knee is on the seat. His left knee is on the seat, right?
Yes.
He draws my right knee down the seat, and the chair creaks as he sets his left behind me.
Yeah.
Give me your mouth. I look back over my shoulder, and he curls over me, kissing me hard and deep.
Mm-hmm.
He slides the head of his cock into position, then lifts his mouth from mine. Last chance to change your mind.
Yeah.
Never gonna happen.
I bet.
I look into his eyes. Fuck me. Make love to me. Take me. I don't care what you call it, as long as you get inside me right now. Need isn't a strong enough word for the way I'm feeling, how desperate I am to hold all of him.
Okay. So
basically, she's still bound to the chair, facing behind, and he's behind her.
Yes. And there's specific commentary on the angle a little bit later in the passage.
Oh, thank you. Oh, Mallory, thank you.
Fuck, you feel like home. We both cry out when he pushes all the way in.
Yeah.
I'm like using this like I'm telestrating or something. The pressure, the stretch, the depth. He's hitting at this angle are all sublimely perfect. The angle is really key here. Okay.
Yeah.
I
So
stop
really
tugging at the shadows with my wrists and grip the back of the chair so I can rock into his next thrust.
She loves this. She loves to grip an armoire or the back of the chair so she can have some agency inside of this.
Yeah.
Again, it really all depends on how high the arms are on the side of this chair.
Yeah. I feel like here's my problem with visualizing this. Maybe I just haven't seen enough furniture. But Violet is so tiny. I'm trying to imagine how
she's so tiny and breakable.
The chair is big enough for Xaden to just slide out.
Yeah.
But small enough that now that one of her knees is on the seat instead of the arm, she can still reach the top. And be at this angle.
Yeah.
But she's a person, not like a Beanie Baby. So I don't know why I'm making it sound like it's fucking impossible. All right, time to sketch.
Mallory Rubin.
Let's see.
Maybe I haven't seen enough furniture.
Oh my God. Okay, let's see. So this is, how am I going to possibly, with my stick figures, do the knees and stuff? This is really, you almost need to do this in layers. Okay, arms are still out. Ponytail. So left leg is up. Right leg is down.
Yeah.
Zayden. Not sure I'm capturing the. Boy, Joe, we might need your expertise again here. I just sort of drew them standing up, but I didn't draw the chair yet.
This is just not what I had in mind when you were like, I'm going to draw this.
Well, I wanted you to draw this one for me so I would understand the angles of the knees. Here you go. This.
Thanks. You're going to have to stall. Read more smut while I do this.
Should I read this entire passage or should I go back to the...
Do whatever moves you.
Yeah, I'll read this one because this then way we can really understand what's happening here. All right. He sends me right over the edge. Lightning crashes, illuminating the room, and thunder immediately follows as I break into uncountable fragments shattered by the waves of bliss that come and come and come. Instead of letting up. That's pretty good. Where's...
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
So these are the arms
But
of the chair.
the only thing we need is his leg on the...
It is. Okay.
Where?
Hold on.
Yeah. Zayden slides 2 fingers inside me and moves in time with his tongue.
This is his knee.
Okay. Wait. Yeah. Okay. And that's
her knee.
Seat of the chair. Yeah.
And that's her other knee.
And then
that's his other knee.
And that's just on, what are the things below that? One leg of his?
Yeah, it's just one.
Right.
But it was...
Because his third leg is inside of Violet at this point, so...
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is preposterous. No one is proportioned this way. But he's so tall and she's so tiny. My favorite...
Oh my God.
Inside of this whole Romantasy situation... I'm sorry, did I interrupt you? Do you want to finish what you were saying?
No, I'm thrilled.
Inside of this whole Romantasy situation that we find ourselves in, there's some great... The memes are really good. And the way that like some people break down the tropes of these, my favorite one, the one that Diana and I talk about all the time, is she's like... I'm just a wee, fragile 16-year-old, and he is an ageless, immortal being, but I am his soulmate, and blah, blah, blah. I climax to save my family. It ends with, I climax to save my family. So funny. We say that all the time. I climax to save my family.
Great stuff. Remarkable. Oh, my God.
Last one.
Thank you for that.
Okay, great.
Thank you for that.
Feel?
It felt great. Do you want to draw? Should we draw some Reese wings or no? You're good.
I'm good. I think we did it. Please edit that down to something that works. Okay. Last but not least, we're just going to zoom through this because it's Valentine's Day and our team would like to spend it with their loved ones. All right. Onyx Storm theory / question / spoiler corner.
Boy. Okay. Fresh off finishing this. So I've thought about nothing.
Great.
Beyond how I draw these scenes.
We're just gonna keep this tight, as they would say.
I mean,
Becca
that's how they like it.
Yeah, that is how they
tight.
like it. Becca wants to know, how did you react to Violet and Andarna's bond severing?
Sad. Painful.
Becca thought of you a lot many times during those chapters.
Thank you, Becca.
I would feel more torn up about it
if Andarna had not returned.
Quickly return.
Yeah, so I did not love the return. One of my theories from the beginning of the book
in the next book.
Yeah, it was very.
She was definitely going to come back, but
mere
like
chapters.
Mere chapters.
Yeah. So one of my theories was that part of what, and this is everybody who read it had this. It's not even. I shouldn't even call it a theory. One of my assumptions was that because Violet was the only person who had bonded 2 dragons, she had a protection that nobody else has, right? And so I had been waiting for Taryn to die. And then Andarna to be the dragon.
And I think that's still going to happen.
Yeah, I think of it. But I actually was not expecting that Andarna would be in any capacity, like the lost bond first.
Yeah.
Do
you think it was important for us to experience the loss of Andarna and like Violet's subsequent depression to understand what it, I mean, obviously, usually inside the rules of this world, when a dragon dies, you die. Yes. But if you die, the dragon doesn't necessarily die.
Right. Correct. Yeah.
But the loss of like who you are and blah, blah, blah. So that when Xaden makes his decision later to save Segal, his dragon, Segal, his dragon, we've already had that experience of like what it feels like inside of Violet's head, inside of her life to like have that connection ripped away.
I think I think of a few things. That for sure. I think like so much of Onyx Storm and the series to date, but Onyx Storm in particular, because of course Iron Flame ends with us seeing the red rim around Xaden's eyes. I'm just thinking of so many filthy things to say. Everything I say
about the red rim.
Yeah, I just like focus, Rubin. So much of Onyx Storm. I would say too much of Onyx Storm is Xaden and Violet just telling each other that they're the most important thing in the world, and having, not because I don't value that aspect of their relationship, but because it's the same conversation over and over again.
Well, what I do like about that is that like where our assumption, I was like, how boring is it going to be if he turns to save Violet?
Yeah.
And the fact that he turns to save his dragon at the end, I thought was a good
agreed for sure
twist.
I think also just with like for Violet's portion of that, because then Xaden has that other bond that is paramount, right? And for Violet, it's like so much of the book is that Xaden is the most important thing, and she won't accept that that he's lost. Like, she will find the cure. She's going to go around the world to find the cure.
I can fix him.
She can fix him. And he's like, you can't. All we can do is hope to solve the progression. But the pain that she feels when Andarna leaves is a different level of despair from anything that she has even contemplated when thinking about what might await with Xaden. So it was also important, I thought, for us and for Violet to remember that she has other relationships and bonds that matter that much too.
And you and I had talked
an extension of herself.
You and I had talked mere minutes ago when you were finishing the book. And you were like trying to make our deadline for this pod, and you were like, what are these other chapter series? Because we get a read chapter and an Imogen chapter at the end of the book inside of this protracted battle situation. The read chapter doesn't have like a ton of, other than like action, a ton of plot relevance, but the idea is Violet's like, I'm not the only one who can fight. I'm not the most important. I'm not the best. She is. And then we see Rhiannon like lead the squad, et cetera, et cetera. So this idea of like, what are the various connections or bonds that exist outside of Violet and Xaden, or okay.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on the theory that the Irids, which is Andarna's breed of dragon, get their magic from the sky rather than the ground? And this one's based on the idea that like Violet still had connections when they were out on the islands where there was none of the other dragons and riders had connections. She could wield, they couldn't. So what's this idea that like those dragons get their power from the sky?
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. And I like too that the kind of base assumption is, well, the reason that something is happening differently for Violet is just because she has two bonds, right? But it's maybe not just that. It's specifically the nature of Andarna's magic.
Yeah.
And obviously the Irids, in addition to, their camouflage and the changing nature of their scales, they're radically distinct in terms of their philosophies, right? They're pacifists. They're appalled by what they confront when our intrepid squad finds them and hunts them down at last. And so the idea that the root of their magic is actually distinct would be really interesting and cool. I would be into that.
This is my favorite theory.
Okay.
Violet's magic works past Orisha, in places where there is little to no magic. We know that Andarna feels fine while the other dragons are in pain without their access to magic. We know that the Irids live without, quote, normal magic and are fine. Violet mentions to Taryn that she feels magic in the air around when he says there's actually less magic. So what if part of why Irids are so special is because they draw magic from the sky, the air around them, and not the physical ground, earth, like other dragons? We know magic likes to balance, so earth versus air magic. Okay, so all of that is true. But there's this other theory I read that I really like. They mentioned Violet's eye color several times in the books and how they're like shifting.
Yeah.
Like she's hazel, but they meant, I have hazel eyes and no one's ever like, oh my God, the amber. Oh my God, the green. Oh my God, the this when you come, like blah, blah, blah. Okay. So like, so there's this like fun theory that.
Until they hear this podcast.
There's this fun theory that Violet has chameleon powers because we think her second signet from Andarna is dream walking.
Yeah.
But it's probably not just that. And so what if her powers are whatever she needs them to be in that given time?
Yeah.
The other Irids were very pissed that Andarna had sort of given her the power that she had given her. And, and dream walking is a big thing to begin with.
Yes.
But like what if like the way that the Irids can chameleonically change themselves to match the backgrounds, her powers can change themselves to be what she needs them to be. And if the way that her eyes change color, not to the ring of red, but other colors, is that related to this idea of like the changing nature of the magic? Or another theory is that her second signet is she can just wield magic, like has power over all of magic. That almost makes her seem too special to me.
Yeah.
Too Empyrean Jesus. And I do like that she's bad at runes.
Terrible
it's the one
at
thing
runes.
she's bad at, but I do like that.
Runes. Yeah, it's interesting because like I've never thought that lightning wielding was as impressive as it's presented to be in the book.
Once in hundreds of years.
Yeah,
Mallory.
I'm like, it's just like, okay, she's Thor.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, well,
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
And then, similarly found it very odd that the reveal on the...
She's a firebender.
Theophany? Theophany?
Yeah.
Theophany front was... Actually, she's not the balance to me on the lightning wielding front. She's the balance to my mom making weather. I'm like, wait, if that's supposed to be scarier in this moment, then it would mean Violet's mother was more powerful than her. But that was not the case. That stuff's just like kind of messy in the story. But the reason I mention that is because when we learned that the rebellion relics come with a second signet.
Yeah.
To me, this means Violet, has to be hiding something still. Something is not manifested or something is not understood in full. Because otherwise, Violet having to like, okay, they're pretty good. They're supposed to be the best, but like, they're like, okay. Signets, one of which nobody can know about because being an Intrinsic is a death sentence in the world. And all of the kids with rebellion relics also have a second signet. Yeah. That actually would be the opposite of being able to do all magic. It would be like too much of a level setting. So I like the chameleon thing. I really like a lot. Did you think after reading Iron Flame, this was one of the things that my pals and I discussed a lot and theorized a lot about in book club, because we had finished reading it a couple weeks after it had come out. And so Rebecca Yarros had done a bunch of interviews already. And she had that like kind of...
She is chatty and
mischievous, tease about how we had already seen Violet's second signet in the second book. We just didn't know that we had seen it. And so I felt sure that it was some Intrinsic thing, specifically actually because of the throne sex scene where we have that... She is suddenly in Xaden's mind. Mm-hmm. But my pal Allison... was like, she can talk to dead people because of the Liam scene. And I was like, oh yeah, you're right. That's going to be it. Because so much of the story has hinged around her needing knowledge from her dad.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, this has got to be it. But then in the as soon as we got to the journals in the third book, I'm like, oh, maybe that's just how she gets the knowledge from her dad. Though, of course, now she has more stuff to ask dear old dad because she found out that he... took her to the Temple of Dune and dedicated her, which is tough stuff. Not great. Not great from our guy, Asher.
Not his best dad move. I feel like there's so many little moments like that.
It supports the theory that it's more than one power.
She can do all kinds of things.
I like it.
Autumn, this is the main thing that people are theorizing. The book ends with a new brother, a new Venin.
Yeah.
And she is very messy, but very specifically, Rebecca Yarros is not. We're supposed to guess who this is. So who is the quote? Autumn asks, who is the quote brother with Xaden at the end? Autumn thinks it's Riddick. Most people assume Garrick or Bodhi. Here's what we know.
Mm-hmm.
The new brother is someone who has seen Xaden struggle with being a veteran for 5 months.
Yeah, so someone who knew.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. If it's not Garrick.
Yeah.
Oh, and Rebecca Yarros said in an interview, pay attention to who's missing at the end of the book.
Right.
So if it's not Garrick who is missing at the end of the book,
Garrick's
why
missing.
did we have that image in chapter?
Right. But that would like, if we play out the string on that would eliminate the Brennan theory. Because Brennan is there at the end.
Yes. Ish.
Yeah.
I want to go back to that.
Okay.
Is it Bodhi?
I think it's Bodhi.
Right.
Because of the engagement ring.
Because of the engagement.
So if Bodhi
because
has turned...
Because of the marriage.
Yes,
she's now the Duchess, right?
Right. If Bodhi has...
Bodhi was set up as the heir.
Exactly.
So now he needs a new heir.
Right. You turned Venin. I told you for the last 40% of the book that I needed you to stay safe. I can't stop this. I can only hope to delay it. You have to rule in my stead once I am completely lost. And Bodhi is like, I don't want to do that. I'm a rider. Let me go out and fight. And it feels like if there was the consort stuff out on the road, etc. Obviously, Xaden's like, well, I would love to spend our lives together.
Yeah.
But the exact nature of how that unfolded with...
It's either Bodhi or it's a clear misdirect to make us think it's Bodhi.
Yeah, because like
there's no other reason for him to like.
Yeah, he needs. Yeah. If Bodhi's Venin, he needs Violet to rule.
Yeah,
that feels like it has to be it. But yeah, I guess it could be. I was wondering if it was Dane, and then Dane is like mentioned 2 paragraphs later.
Right.
So
Brennan is there.
Yes.
So even though Brennan is one of the 3 main candidates that people are theorizing about, it's not a great fit. But here's my main Brennan thing that I want to talk about. Brennan, who I've always been suspicious of, mostly because like he comes back from the dead.
Yeah.
The only person we know who came back from the dead was Jack Barlow, right?
Mm-hmm.
Naolin, who was Taryn's rider beforehand, and it is implied that Brennan and Naolin were like a thing.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And he's the one who resurrected Brennan. But there's a rune mark on Brennan's hand.
This was weird, yeah.
And when Sloane was transferring the power between Dane and Brennan, a lot of people have noticed this, there's no rune mark.
Right.
And Violet had assumed, and I hate that Violet does this because she's so smart, but sometimes she's like, oh, clearly it's that, and doesn't ask any questions.
Yeah.
She assumed the rune mark on Brennan's hand was because of the time that Naolin like channeled power to bring him back to life. But what if instead, I know I'm mispronouncing Naolin, I can't quite say his name. What if instead he turned Venin to bring Brennan back to life? And that is why Taryn does not want to talk about the one who came before. They don't talk about his death.
Yeah.
It's why he hates that Xaden is Venin so much and all that sort of stuff like that. So like, what if Naolin, who was Taryn's previous rider and Brennan's boyfriend and brought him back to life, is the sage or is one of the like major Venin on the other side of this conflict?
Well, it feels like we're building toward, I love it. It's felt since the first mention of what happened with him and Brennan.
Yeah.
It was part of why Brennan's return at the end of the first book was, while fun and exciting, not very surprising.
Thank you.
And I
very telegraphed.
Yes. But similarly, it has felt like, okay, that he's coming back too in some form. Like that will be significant in some way. The
also Brennan has amber eyes.
Yeah, in the Sloane Brennan Dane sequence, that like part of why I was on Dane watch at the end was because of the mention of like the
more power
than he's supposed to have, which was also very, very worrying, just extremely troubling. But I'll call her Theo.
It's like Stephanie. It's like Persephone. Theophany.
It's, she's like just the big bad in this book. And like, it's very clear, especially in the final conflict, that there are larger threats waiting.
Well, there's the sage.
Yeah, well, right. The sage,
and then
there's Maven.
What I feel like,
and then there's exactly, and so that
big bad above.
I feel like yes, exactly, and so the final boss, I think, just has to be someone we know.
I like the idea that it's Naolin because the Wyvern are new. And so this idea that like he brought this knowledge of like how to make the wyvern to the venom is a possibility. I like all of these theories.
So do you think Brennan knows this?
Yeah, I think he's compromised. I think I've always suspected that he's compromised in some way or another, especially because in the journals, her dad is like, trust only Mira. Only Mira.
Yeah.
I'm like, Brennan, I don't trust you.
Right. And there is the like, well, did he just, because he assumed his son was dead at that point?
Possibly.
And,
yes.
Yeah, but I think also, you know, Violet is so afraid for so long of people finding out about Xaden. And obviously, like, just like when a superhero identity is revealed, suddenly so many people know, right? Very quickly. But Brennan, I would say, is the only one. Now, we don't see the moment where he finds out.
Exactly.
We just learn from Violet that he knows, through Violet that he knows and has been helping Xaden. But he seems pretty chill and eager to help.
Yep.
So, yeah.
In the way that someone would be eager to cure another venom. And then also Xaden says he knows of one other venom who hates his master. Okay.
Yeah.
Autumn also asks, do you think book 4 will see Xaden and Violet apart from most of the book, praying to the god of war? I'm wrong. Yes, I do, but I also know that Violet can dream walk, and so presumably she can dream fuck. What do you think? Dream fucking for all of book 4 of this series?
One of my longstanding points of consternation is that there's not nearly enough masturbation in the series. Now, I just not even close, because, and there are some references in both series, some references, and there's even the moment where like, in one of the sex scenes in Onyx Storm, when Violet's like, you know, don't keep me waiting any longer. And if you do, I'm just going to like touch myself and make you watch. And he's like, we should have done that earlier. And it's like, yeah, like you didn't get right. You didn't feel you could touch each other. Why were you not? You share a mental bond.
Yeah.
Constantly just masturbate. I don't understand this. This is like baffling to me. Again, a couple mentions and allusions, but I just feel like it should be every 3 pages. They went these sex addicted, crazy kids who can't get enough of each other went 70 plus days without having sex. I just think every 3rd paragraph should have been about masturbation. I do.
So dream masturbation in book 4.
Dream masturbation. And, you know, Eric probably already knows about it because of
this is the last thing, because it is so up your alley. Becca wants to know Eric's signet, which was manifest. Like we figured out at the very end of this book, he's a precog. She says the fact that she said precog was like, okay, Minority Report. In the grand scheme of autonomy / interference / changing timelines, there are a lot of ways to go about it. What do you think serves the story the best with Eric being a precog?
For him to not have had this power.
Yes.
I was so upset about this.
He's going to have to be in a coma, I think, or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, no.
This was a bad move.
Yeah. I I'm kind of bummed about that. I like Eric, actually. I think he's an interesting character.
I like Eric a lot.
Yeah. And that whole family dynamic with Halden has been really fun. But we simply can't have the ability to see the future and then go back and help people and give them crucial information that comes into play in the final battle. That just can't be a thing.
All the like little asterisks on things is like Melgren can see the outcome of any battle unless there are 3 marked, 3 or more marked together or something like that. It's just like, okay. This book is crazy. Okay. That has been mostly most of what we wanted to do here in Theory Corner. Thank you so much for all of your emails, all of your questions, comments, or concerns. Thanks to Mallory for her art, her tremendous art.
Thank you to you for your art. That was really educational.
Happy to help. I loved geometry in high school.
Oh, God.
Thank you, of course, to Steve Ahlman, John Richter, Arjuna Ramgopal, Jomi Adeniran for dealing with all of this that we have presented
and
them.
Sorry.
Yeah, thanks and sorry. And Rex, who we just met today, who
Rex,
was also
so
here.
Great to meet you.
So nice to meet you,
What a
Rex.
first day together.
Thanks for being here today. We'll be back next week for Yellow Jackets and Captain America. Happy Valentine's Day to everyone.
Happy Valentine's Day, my darling.
Happy Valentine's Day to you. Bye. Bye.